hope your June is off to a great start. Hopefully you had a great Memorial Day weekend. I'm going to be hopping on these monthly emails from time to time, trying to make something that's slightly educational for y'all, maybe bring you guys some new cutting edge stuff that we're working on with the Ivy League team, and just talk about relevant topics. Just a way that I miss y'all. I want to connect with y'all, so this is my way of staying in touch with everybody. Today, I want to talk to you guys about heat injuries. It's June, it's hot, it's been hot, and it's only going to get hotter. We talked about this topic at last month's alumni session. We got to practice with some thermometers and whatnot, so it was actually pretty useful, pretty beneficial for a lot of owners. Before we get into prevention and symptoms, just to give you a little bit of background, let's talk about baselines. So when your dog is exposed to heat, hotter temperatures, everyone knows that dogs pant. Hopefully you know that your dog can't sweat. So the panting is 98% of that heat exchange. San Antonio is especially difficult for dogs because it's so humid. And the higher the humidity along with the temperature, the harder it is for dogs to have that heat exchange coming off of their mouth and their tongue, because there's just too much moisture in the air. So if you're in a dry heat, it is a little bit easier, but when it's 110 degrees with 70% humidity, that's just not easy for anybody. So let's talk about baselines. Your dog walking around the house when they're calm in the middle of the day, their temperature is going to be anywhere from like 100 degrees to 102.5. That is the clinical baseline temperature for your dogs, 100 to 102.5. It's a lot higher than ours, right? Like we're at 98.6. They're a lot higher. So don't freak out if you're starting to get a baseline temperature from your dog and you're thinking your dog's going into heat stroke. That's not the case. But then we have heat stress, first level, heat exhaustion, second level, and then heat stroke is the last level, usually before death. And so as it gets higher internal temperature, you're going to escalate through those stages of heat injury. Okay, so the only way to really tell what level your dog is at is to get a thermometer. And I would recommend getting some kind of a quick read thermometer. Usually like Vicks has a 3 to 5 second, it'll spit you out a temperature, which is super helpful because you have to take your dog's temperature rectally. So that's something that I recommend you practicing from time to time to get comfortable with it. And then also practicing when you're out and about this summer. We want you to be out, we want you to be active, but we want you to do it safely. And a really cool thing you can do is after you do your neighborhood walk, take your dog's temperature, like immediately afterwards. And then, let's just say for simple math, it's at 105. Okay, cool. After that neighborhood walk at that time of day, my dog's at 105. Then an hour later, after they're cooling down, take it again. How fast does my dog cool down? Like this is all just data points that you can collect really easily to start to get a baseline for what your dog is going to do in the heat with different activities. So if your dog likes fetch, take it after 10 minutes of fetch. And clinically, if your dog gets up to 105 degrees, that's when you want to cease all that physical activity you're doing, get them in some shade, get them some water, and allow them to start cooling down. Your dog's going to be different though based on whatever breed they are. So if you got like a short snout dog, you're going to probably want to stop and cool them down a little bit quicker. If you got a Belgian Malinois, like my retired military working dog Bass, he would get up 108. I think the most I ever got him to was right under 109, and that's very, very hot, very, very dangerous. And that was obviously in training situations, but that just goes to show you with that temperament of a dog doing that stressful of an activity, you will get pretty hot. But definitely at like 105, you want to stop that activity and let your dog just cool down a little bit. Now, as we get into, so thermometer is the only way to really know how hot your dog is getting. And then once you have a catalog of experiences, then you'll be able to kind of visually see the signs and symptoms, the amount of panting, if your dog's seeking shade, how hard are they panting? Is their gums still wet? All these little signs to know exactly how hot your dog may be and to know when enough is enough and let's chill them out. The main point that I wanted to make in this video, though, that doesn't get talked about enough is when you acclimate your dog. So acclimating your dog is so crucial to prevention. As you guys know, a lot of our program at Ivy League is all about being proactive with their behavior management, with their obedience, and then especially with like heat injury. It's the same thing. I still want you guys to be nice and proactive about avoiding heat injury. The way you go about doing that is simple. You use your obedience training, your place training, your off switch, but just do it out in the heat more often. A lot of dogs will get heat injuries. They'll be more prevalent because if you think about it, they're hanging out inside the house at 70 degrees all day long, and then we bring them right outside where it's 110. And even in the heat of the day in San Antonio, it's 110 at 5 p.m. So it's not like you can just wait for evening. It's still super hot, and that's such a drastic change, and they're not used to it, that they only spend an hour or less outside a day. They're going to overheat much easier with those conditions. So you have to get your dog out more often throughout the day. Just the safest, simplest way to do that is bring your place bed out. You can be outside with them, or if you have a backyard, be observing them. This is all dependent on where you're at with your training journey, of course, but generally find some time to get outside, and they don't have to be doing activities. They can just be laying there. They can be existing out in the heat. I like to acclimate our dogs by just getting them kennel time in a shady spot, but having that kennel outside during the day. And so if you have a safe place that you can do that, that's a option that your dog can just be hanging out in the kennel, but it's in the shade while it's 100 degrees outside. And the more often you do that, theoretically, clinically, the more acclimated they will be to that weather. The Lackland Air Force Base kennels down like South San Antonio, they don't have air conditioning. I think they're making new kennels now because of the cold, actually, not because of the heat. But during the summertime, those dogs are 24 hours a day. They're outside, they're in the heat, they have shade, but that's necessary, that's vital in order for trainers to come in, work these dogs in the heat, and then have them not get heat stroke and get severely injured. They have to get used to it, and the only way to get used to it is by being immersed in it. So the more you can get your dog outside in a passive way, the better it's going to make active. There is really no acclimation that you can do with your dog for 110 degrees, full sunlight, on the pavement. That's just too dang hot. So please be smart about this. But you can use shade, you can use passive exercises, and you can help yourself out. So be proactive. Get yourself a thermometer, start getting baseline temperatures. And of course, if you have any questions, reach out to us. Let us know what your questions are, what you're struggling with. And if you have any ideas of something you want me to speak about in one of these video updates, just let me know. I'd be happy to talk to you guys about it. This one's going to be pretty short and sweet, but I am more than happy to dive into these little updates as long as you guys are wanting. So I look forward to seeing the highlights from this month's alumni session. Hopefully we can get a lot of participation out there, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks.